Have you ever noticed that every Age of Empires 2 DLC comes with that promise of just a few more civs and campaigns, and suddenly your entire way of playing changes? Well, there you go. The last Chieftains looks simple on the surface, but it has a ton of hidden details tucked away in there. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and join me on this journey through the steppes of South America, because these 10 things will make you see this expansion through different eyes. This complete naval overhaul is the kind of change I didn't even know I was waiting for. But now that it's been announced, I feel like the game was a bit lopsided without it. Age of Empires 2 has always had that reputation, where water maps are either ignored or turned into whoever makes the most galleys wins. And bringing in new ship lines like the Hulk, War Hulk, and Carrack seems like a serious attempt to give depth and identity to naval combat, just like what exists on land. The detail about siege ships, like the catapult galleon, gets me really excited because it completely changes the dynamic of how you siege coastal bases or pressure defenses. Now, it's not just control the water and swim in circles. You have tools to turn naval dominance into real pressure with a direct impact on the land game. This brings the two fronts closer together and makes water stop being that annoying little side game and start being a legitimate strategic extension of the match. The new boat technologies are also welcome because they mean more decision trees, more timing to plan, and more ways to specialize your fleet according to what you're facing. I like it when the game gives you options instead of obligations. And if this overhaul is well balanced, I can imagine naval builds with identity, some focusing on siege, others on mobility, others on tanking and holding position. Best of all, this comes to everyone, not just those who buy the DLC. I highly value it when a developer understands that overhauling core mechanics needs to be universal. Otherwise, you fragment the community and ruin the competitive experience. This water rework has the potential to make aquatic maps interesting again, and I can't wait to test these new lines and see if the ocean has finally become a real battlefield. I love this update because it touches on two things I always want to see in Age of Empires 2. More representation for regions that often get pushed aside, and at the same time, real care for the competitive scene. The DLC brings 3 new South American civilizations, Mapuche, Muisca, and Tupi, which is already a huge invitation to return to the game with that sense of discovery. What strikes me most here is the promise that they arrive ready for ranked multiplayer, without that broken new Civ for 2 weeks vibe that ruins the queue and kills the urge to test things seriously. When the description mentions familiar tech trees and more intuitive design, I read that as you'll be able to play them well early on without having to relearn the whole game just to understand the concept. Personally, I really enjoy it when a new Civ has identity but doesn't become a separate minigame. You look at it, understand it, and immediately think about builds, timing, composition, and transitions. The idea of maintaining the core of the game's roster while bringing unique regional elements is the kind of balance that, in theory, makes both veterans and newcomers comfortable experimenting. And to be honest, the Mapuche, Muisca, and Tupi in AoE 2 have that rare potential to become my new Civ of the month. Not just because I want something new, but because I want something new that actually enters the rotation. If they truly are balanced for ranked and have tech trees that aren't intimidating, it's easy to imagine these 3 appearing very quickly in mental drafts for maps, matchups, and playstyles. These Mapuche unique units caught my attention immediately because they seem designed to reward fight reading and micro, not just brute force. The Kona, as a melee cavalry that deals extra damage to already wounded targets, gives that delicious feeling that you are playing for momentum. You got in, you dealt damage, and now you want to close the deal quickly and turn a small advantage into a wipe. The detail of extra damage to wounded targets also changes how I imagine trades. You start to value the first contact and any poke much more before the actual engagement. In my head, this creates a very aggressive style, chasing units trying to retreat, punishing those who break formation, and making the enemy feel that every skirmish carries a high cost. Meanwhile, The Bolas Rider, being a ranged cavalry that slows down enemies, is the kind of tool I love because it's not just about damage. It messes with the rhythm of the battle. Slowing down means choosing who escapes and who doesn't. Separating lines, preventing reinforcements from arriving in time, and even locking down that target you want to focus on with the rest of your army. And the coolest part for me is how the two pieces fit together. One unit that wants to finish off wounded targets, and another that makes escaping difficult. If this is well balanced, you can imagine very satisfying plays in ranked. You'll feel the opponent gradually losing ground, and when they try to pull out, the Mapuche have the right tools to say, no, this trade is mine. These Muisca unique units really stand out to me because they seem to play with concepts of risk and sacrifice, something I always like to see in Age of Empires 2 civs. The Guecha warrior, as a dart thrower, fits the idea of a ranged unit, but the part where its death heals nearby allies is where everything gets interesting. This makes it so that, in my mind, you don't just see the Guecha as more damage, but as a piece that can even be used to hold a front or trade strategically, because even at the moment it dies, there's still a tactical benefit. The fact that it heals allies upon death changes the feel of skirmishes. You start to think twice before sending everything into a trade. Because every Guecha on the line could be an extra breath of life for your militiamen, range units, or even heavy cavalry. In practice, this affects micro and timing, because you don't just want to maximize damage while it's alive, but also take advantage of the healing point when it falls. On the other hand, the Temple Guard, being a heavy infantry that attacks faster in prolonged combat, speaks directly to those who enjoy battles of attrition. This unit seems made for those who want to lock down the enemy, hold the front, and let the advantage grow over time instead of winning everything in a quick push. To me, the Muisca start to have that air of a civilization that prefers consistency over explosion, and the Temple Guard is the heart of that idea. The longer the confrontation lasts, the more you feel you are in control. What pleases me most is how these two units seem to fit into different narratives within the same civ. The Guecha peppering the field with darts and healing, while the Temple Guard holds the formation, giving time for everything to happen. This creates a very distinct style, where the Muisca don't need to be just another cavalry or another archer civ, but rather a civilization that views combat as a continuous process involving trades, recovery, and attrition. Man, when I read about the two-piece Blackwood Archer, my mind went straight to that volume suffocation strategy I love to pull off when a civ allows it. The idea of a cheap unit that trains in pairs completely changes the match's math, because you aren't just saving resources, you are doubling your map presence in the same production time. To me, this screams constant pressure, the kind that doesn't let the opponent breathe or leave their base without taking arrows. There's also that swarm feeling that is so satisfying in RTS games, you know? Instead of micromanaging every archer as if it were a rare jewel, you play knowing you have the volume to replenish and trade evenly, even with theoretically stronger units. It's the kind of design that removes the fear of losing troops and puts the total focus on aggression and denying space, turning the match into a war of attrition. You know you'll win by numbers. Now, the Ibarapama warrior is where things get truly brutal and bring that visual impact that is sometimes missing. Heavy infantry with area damage is the nightmare of anyone who likes to play with death balls of clumped units. Imagine the damage this does in the middle of a pack of pikemen or halberdiers. It's the perfect punishment for those who get sloppy with positioning, and I can already see those health bars dropping all at once in a beautiful way. What I find brilliant is how these two units define the 2P identity in a very cohesive way. You have the absurd volume from afar to force an error, and a devastating punishment up close with the Ibarapama when the enemy tries to engage. It's not just about having strong units, it's about having tools that create controlled chaos on the battlefield. I can't wait to test this combination and see the desperation on the other side when the 2P blob arrives. This news about exclusive regional units is the kind of thing that wins me over instantly, because it creates a glue between different civilizations without stripping away their individual personalities. Adding Chompy warriors and slingers as options for the Incas, Mapuche, Muisca, and Tupi opens up a huge tactical range. And I especially like it when the game gives new tools that change your decisions on the field, not just numbers and bonuses. The Chompy warriors, being fast infantry that can also build watch posts and are great against ranged units, seem like the perfect piece to mess up an opponent's plan. I can already imagine the feeling of using them to gain vision at key points, harass archers, and gain map control without depending exclusively on scouts or an expensive transition. It's utility pressure, and that usually generates much more creative matches. Meanwhile, slingers as anti-infantry shooters give me the vibe of a direct answer to compositions that abuse cheap unit masses in the front. To me, this is healthy for the game. You don't get stuck in that situation of either I have X unit from my civ or I die to infantry, because now there is a regional piece that helps balance matchups and gives more options to hold off timing pushes. And the coolest detail is that by being available to 4 civs, these regional units could become a common language in multiplayer. You take one look and think, okay, he might opt for Chompy to hunt ranged and set up vision, or he might pull slingers if I overdo the infantry. I really like it when a DLC adds content like this, because it makes us relearn micro decisions in battle without needing to relearn the whole game. This campaign part is, for me, the biggest emotional sell of the last Chieftains. 3 epic campaigns totaling 15 missions, and each one seems designed to grab you by the collar and not let go. Just the promise of impactful choices and heroes with unique abilities already gives me that vibe of a campaign that isn't just build base and destroy castle, but a journey with memorable moments. Lautaro's campaign, with its theme of Mapuche revenge against the Spanish, sounds like one of those resistance stories that tends to deliver tense missions with objectives that force you to play smart and feel the weight of the conflict. I like it when the game puts you in a role where every victory feels hard-earned, because that gives meaning to progress and makes you care about what's happening on the map, not just the score. El Dorado, focused on the Muisca and featuring 2 playable perspectives, is exactly the kind of structure I find most interesting in an RTS. When you see the same conflict from different sides, everything changes. What you consider right changes, your understanding of strategy changes, and even how you read the terrain and objectives changes. If they do this well, it could be the most replayable campaign of the 3, because it's not just about switching missions, it's about switching worldviews. And then comes Araraboya, with the Tupi allying with the Portuguese, which really grabs me because it opens up space for those missions where diplomacy and alliances actually matter. Allied tribes and impactful choices usually generate those delightfully painful decisions. You gain strength now, but pay the price later, or you hold back your advantage to keep the alliance alive. If the campaign truly uses heroes with unique abilities as strategic pieces, and not just strong units, I'm already ready to play every mission, like a small chapter of an epic. This free Inca rework is the kind of update I always hope to see in Age of Empires 2. It's not just more content, but real care for a civ that many people already know inside and out. New architecture immediately changes the mood, because campaigns and matches get a different visual identity. And I love when the game makes you feel like you're in another corner of the world, just by glancing at the city. The most interesting thing for me is the idea of bringing regional units to the Incas alongside this rework, as it gives new tools without necessarily breaking the civ or turning it into something else. It's that kind of update that seems to say, all right, you already know how to play Inca, now we're gonna give you new decision lines so you can choose how to respond to every matchup. And the updated Pachacuti campaign with objective markers is practically a finale for those who love campaigns but don't want to struggle with the interface. Well-made markers make the rhythm much smoother. You spend less time trying to guess what the game wants and spend your energy on what matters, planning, executing, and enjoying the story moments. The detail that caps it all off is that this comes to everyone who owns the base game with new content integration. I like it when the whole community wins together because it makes the game more cohesive. Those who play only campaigns, casual players, and multiplayer fans all end up speaking the same language of content, which keeps AoE 2 alive in a much healthier way. I really enjoy it when a DLC doesn't just bring gameplay stuff, but also changes the mood of the game, and these new visual elements and resources do exactly that. South American architecture is the kind of detail that, in practice, makes you look at a base and feel like you're on another continent with a different identity. And for me, that gives a huge boost even to replaying maps I already know by heart. The new animals are a delightful touch to make the map feel more alive. Tameable capybaras are simply charisma in resource form. The huntable Rhea adds variety to the opening, and the Black Panther already conveys that dangerous biome feeling that goes well with exploration. The whale as aquatic gold is one of those ideas I love, because it creates a different reason to fight for the water besides fish, and changes how you view coastal control and economic transitions. The new flora and terrains also have an impact that many people underestimate. Papaya bushes, new textures, and terrain variations are those changes that make a match feel fresh even before you click on your first unit. I like this because it helps tell a story without needing a cutscene. The map already tells you where you are, and that gives a different weight to the campaign and even to skirmishes. In the end, it's the kind of novelty I always celebrate because it improves the experience in every possible way. Campaign players get immersion, casual players get charm and variety, and competitive players get more interesting map reading without necessarily messing up the basics. If there's one thing that makes me want to go back to AoE 2, it's when the game manages to be strategic and, at the same time, beautiful and full of personality. These quality of life improvements are what I consider real food for Age of Empires 2. They are what you feel in every match, even when you aren't testing a new Civ or campaign. Voice chat, for example, has huge potential to make team games more coordinated and fun, because you can resolve things in seconds that would have turned into a chaos of pings and delayed messages in chat. Garrison flags give me a vibe of immediate comfort, because garrisoning and ungarrisoning is one of those actions you perform 1,000 times. And when the interface helps, the game becomes more fluid and less of a struggle with commands. I like these changes because they don't make anyone stronger for free. They just reduce friction and let you focus on what matters: decisions and execution. The 13 new achievements and the expanded scenario editor are 2 points that, in my mind, feed the game's longevity from different angles. Achievements are that nice little nudge to play around with specific challenges, while an improved editor is the fuel for the community to keep creating new things, which is how AoE 2 has stayed alive for decades. And these buildings, like settlements, which provide population support and serve as resource drop-off points, seem like one of those ideas that change your base organization without being a total revolution. I can already imagine the difference in the feeling of the eco. Less walking, more layout flexibility, and maybe even new openings on maps where drop-off positioning usually dictates the pace. If this is well integrated, it's a small novelty on paper, but a giant one in practice.
准备就绪。
长沙太守，长沙太守，匹夫。
是。准备就绪。
什么剑创弓？
何主命令？
长沙太守，坚决为前，战一生东。